Chapter 3. I don't suppose I have to tell you who that one person who'd never heard of the Yucky Prince was, do I? I do? Well, dear me. I'd have thought you'd have been able to guess by now. Anyhow, it was me. Which way? I was the only person in the whole kingdom who'd never heard about the prince. Now, when I say I've never heard of him, I don't really mean that I'd never heard of him exactly. I mean, I knew there was a prince called Aloysius Tripod Jefficus. I also knew the name of the king and queen, and the butcher, and the baker, and the candlestick seller, and all their families. We witches like to know these things when we're going to a new kingdom. No, when I say I hadn't heard of the Yucky Prince, I mean I hadn't heard just how horrid and yucky he was. Like you, I thought all princes were good and noble and kind, and boy was I wrong. Well, if you don't know how yucky he was, how do you know all the things you've just told us? I hear you ask. And a very good reason it is too, if you don't mind me saying so. The answer is quite simple. I found out later. If I had known what he was like, you can bet your little brother or sister that I'd have suddenly come down with something nasty, horrible and catching too. But I didn't know. So there I was, fresh out of the Griselda Grimswood Academy for Wizards and Witches, with my diploma in witchcrafts hung proudly on the wall, all my books, potions and lotions in their proper place, and my feet up on the table, enjoying a nice cup of nettle and twig soup. I'll send you the recipe if you want. Tiddles, my cat, was stretched out in front of the fire, enjoying his second favourite hobby of sleeping. Eating sausages was his first favourite hobby. Suddenly, tap, 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 there was a soft tapping on the door, and a tiny voice was calling, "Which way, oh, which way? Might we talk to you a moment?" I looked at Tiddles with surprise. I wasn't expecting anyone, and as far as I knew, he wasn't either. "I wonder who that can be," I said, taking my feet down and putting my soup cup up. "I'm not supposed to start working here for another few days." I walked over and opened the door. When I saw the king and queen, well, I got such a surprise that you could have knocked me off my broom with a budgie's feather, as we witches say. I still had enough sense to make a little bow, the way Dame Grimwood had taught us, and mumble, "Your Majesties, please do me the honour of stepping into my humble home." They shot a quick glance at each other, and I think I saw the queen cross her fingers for luck. Then the king smiled wearily. "Firstly, which way? Let me say how welcome you are to the kingdom. I'm sure you'll bring great honour to your school, yourself and the kingdom while you're with us." He winked at the queen, who seemed to be crossing her eyes as well as her fingers. "Please don't think us as impolite if we don't come in on this occasion. It's just that we are in an awful hurry to get to the kingdom of Earth. Something came up unexpectedly. We have to be there as soon as possible," added the queen, who I think, although I can't be sure, was now crossing her arms and legs as well. "The thing is," said the king, "the journey will be much too tiring for the prince, who, as you can see, is already very tired." I looked at the Yucky Prince, who was almost more asleep than awake, and nodded. And, well, because this was sort of unexpected, and what with the palace staff on leave and everyone in town either sick or going away or expecting visitors, we were sort of wondering, said the king, almost in one breath, "would you be able to look after him for us? It will only be until the day after tomorrow." "Really? Only a couple of days," said the queen, almost pleading. "And we really would be most grateful." Well, double knocked me off my broomstick with a budgie's feather. There I was, only 3 days out of the academy and 2 days into my first job, and the king and queen were already asking me for a favour. Wouldn't that make Dame Grimswood proud of me? "Why, certainly, your Majesties. I'd only be too pleased, and—" I didn't even have time to finish the sentence before the Yucky Prince was pushed into my cottage. The king and queen were rushing down the path as fast as their legs could carry them. "Remember, only 2 days and 730 lollies," the king shouted over his shoulder. Then they jumped into the coach and shot down the road like a rabbit chased by a dog. And I closed the door. I thought I could hear them yelling, "We did it! We did it! We got rid of him! 2 whole days without him! Whoopee! Whoopee!" Now I know that they should have told me something about the prince, but I was just too excited to think about it. I was so happy I could have hugged myself. Just think of it, me, Wendy Way, only a witch for 5 days and already given the honour of looking after a prince. Hazel, my best friend at the academy, would be green with envy when she found out. I'd probably get my name in Witches Weekly and read out in the academy. if I did a really good job. I might even get my photo hung in the famous pupils' corner. It was so exciting. I looked at the Yucky Prince. Even half asleep, he looked just like one of those little angels that you see on the Christmas cards. I put my arm around him and brought him over to the fire. Tiddles, I said, this is the little prince, and he'll be staying with us for a couple of days. Tiddles looked up, yawned, and went back to sleep. I turned to the prince and gave him my best smile. And I'm which way, little prince? For the next 2 days, we'll have great fun together. Ugh, he grunted. He was so tired that he didn't even notice when he trod on Tiddles' paws, one at a time. I led him into the visitor's bedroom. He kicked off his shoes, flopped down into the bed, and was asleep almost as soon as his head hit the pillow. I tiptoed out of the room and went back to my chair beside the fire. Well, Tiddles, we must be on our best behaviour for the next few days, mustn't we? Tiddles was too busy rolling round on his back, trying to lick his paws better, or even try to reply. Oh, don't be such a baby, Tiddles. It was an accident. Go into the kitchen and see if you can find another sausage to take your mind off it. I have to write and tell the dame my good news. While Tiddles hobbled off in search of food, I sat down and wrote Dame Grimwood a long, long letter, telling her all about the great honour I'd been given. Then, just to round it off, I signed it from a very, very, very lucky which way. Some luck.